The stroller she pushed was bright yellow. I remember that first. It had tiny suns printed all over the fabric, and the baby inside was asleep, mouth hanging open like he hadn't a care in the world. Neither did she, apparently. Until she saw me. She didn't notice right away. She was by the smoothie stand, ordering something with chia seeds. I could tell because I heard her say it. Extra chia, please. Like she'd never screamed at me for buying the wrong almond milk 2 years ago. I stood behind a row of overpriced massage chairs, clutching a stupid microwave box, frozen. I should have walked away. But instead, I stared. Like some pathetic deer staring down headlights that looked a whole lot like my ex-wife's eyes. Then it happened. She turned. Her head tilted first, casual. Then her eyes caught mine, and everything shifted. I wish I could describe it. The way her lips stopped moving mid-sentence. The way the color in her face vanished so quickly, I thought she might faint. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. I felt like one. My hoodie was damp from rain. I hadn't shaved in a week. My left shoe was untied. Meanwhile, she looked like a lifestyle blog, wavy hair, oversized cardigan, smile that had just been real, now twitching into panic. I hadn't seen her in 748 days. Yeah, I counted. And there she was, holding the baby she made with him. She said something. I couldn't hear it. My ears were ringing. It might have been L, or oh my, or maybe just a breath. But I knew what she was thinking. What is he doing here? I wanted to laugh. What was I doing there? That mall had been our escape on rainy Sundays. The frozen yogurt place was still there, where she used to beg for double mochi. I remember the exact corner where she once kissed me between the escalators, whispering, "Promise we'll never fall apart." She broke the promise in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon. She hadn't texted, hadn't called, just disappeared. Left behind a house with 2 toothbrushes still in the cup, her wedding ring on the coffee table, and a voicemail that began with, "Please don't be mad," and ended with, "I'm not coming back." And yet, here she was. Alive. Blooming. Complete. With his child. I didn't approach. Not yet. I watched her pick up her drink, bounce the baby gently, and glance around nervously, as if I might vanish if she blinked hard enough. But I didn't. I stepped forward. She saw me move, and her body stiffened like I'd drawn a weapon. The baby stirred. The stroller wheel squeaked as she backed it an inch. My voice cracked when I finally spoke, not some clever comeback or biting insult. No. Just a single question, soft and flat. "Is that him?" Her eyes glistened. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. Because I already knew. She didn't answer me. Instead, she looked away, suddenly fascinated with a nearby rack of scented candles. The baby gurgled, loud, oblivious, happy, while she pretended like my question hadn't sliced through the 2 years of silence between us. I took another step forward. Not because I wanted to intimidate her. I didn't. I just wanted her to look at me properly. Like a human. Not a mistake. Not a phase she outgrew. Her fingers fidgeted with the edge of her smoothie cup. She glanced down at the baby, her baby, as if hoping he'd magically distract me. But he didn't. My eyes were locked on her, and my chest was tight like I'd swallowed gravel. I repeated the question, slower this time, like maybe she didn't hear it the first time. "Is that his kid?" I motioned slightly toward the stroller, not trusting myself to say his name. "Curtis." Even now, the syllables tasted bitter. She gave the faintest nod, like she was scared to move her head any more than that. I let out this ridiculous laugh. It wasn't a real laugh, more like something cracked inside me and spilled out through my mouth. A couple passing by turned their heads. Mallory shrank a little into her oversized sweater, clearly wishing the floor would open and swallow her. "So," I said, too loud now, my voice bouncing off the tiled walls of the food court, "you did it. You actually build a family with him." I looked down at the kid again. He had her eyes, huge and blue and a little too knowing. "Guess I was just a warm-up act." "Please don't," she said finally, her voice thin, worn, like an apology that had aged poorly. She still didn't call me by name. Not Elwood. Not even you. Just don't. Like I was a threat, or worse, an echo. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something small and meaningless, like a phone charger or a food tray. Instead, I stared at her and asked, "Why'd you do it like that? Just leave. No goodbye. No warning. You didn't even tell me in person." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked genuinely speechless. I'd imagined this moment so many times, in the shower, in traffic, lying awake on my deflated air mattress. I had drafted 1,000 perfect lines. But none of them prepared me for this awkward, suffocating silence. My chest ached. I realized I hadn't taken a breath in almost 20 seconds. I didn't think you'd let me go, she finally whispered. You always clung to things. She gestured vaguely, like I was a bad habit she'd kicked. I wanted to say something clever, something final. But what came out was a pitiful whisper. I was your husband. And she flinched. That word, husband, hit her like a slap. She looked down again, her hand automatically rocking the stroller back and forth. The kid began to fuss, not crying yet, just fidgeting. And still, she didn't say my name. I would have done anything for you, I said. I stayed when you got depressed. I cleaned up your mom's garage when no one else would. I helped you rehearse for your job interviews, even when you were already messaging him. That made her eyes shoot up. That's not fair, isn't it? I asked. Because I remember the night you came home smelling like cologne. I asked if it was just a new shampoo. You said it was lavender and rolled your eyes at me like I was crazy. I didn't want to hurt you. You still did. She exhaled sharply, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. But of course she didn't. Mallory had always been good at keeping it together in public. Me? I was the guy who once sobbed in a Walgreens parking lot because they were out of those orange-flavored cough drops she liked. I was the guy who begged her to come home over voicemail number 17 while she was already living with him. Now I stood here in the mall, holding a box with a microwave I didn't even want, talking to the woman who used to say forever in her sleep, while her new child tried to shove a plastic giraffe into his mouth. And then she said the worst thing she possibly could have. You look different. That was it. Not, I'm sorry. Not, you didn't deserve it. Just different, like I was a hairstyle or a furniture arrangement. I wanted to disappear. So I did something I didn't plan. I turned around and walked away. Not dramatically. Not with some epic line or middle finger in the air. I just left, box in hand, shoulders hunched. I walked past the candle display, past the pretzel stand, out the automatic doors into the gray afternoon drizzle. And as they slid shut behind me, I realized something strange. For the first time since she left, she was the one watching me leave. I thought that would be the end of it, just walking away, letting the glass doors slide shut behind me like curtains after a humiliating performance. I didn't expect anything else from her. I certainly didn't expect the sound of quick footsteps splashing through puddles behind me. Elwood, wait. It was the first time she'd said my name in over 2 years. I froze under the awning outside the mall, gripping the box tighter like it might keep me grounded. I didn't turn around. She caught up, breathless, one hand shielding her eyes from the rain, the other pressing her cardigan closed over her chest. The stroller, thank God, was still inside. I think she left it with one of those kiosk workers. Or maybe she didn't care. I don't know. I couldn't stop staring at the parking lot. The gray sky above it. The thin thread of steam rising from the pavement. She stood beside me in silence for a few seconds, her breathing the only sound between us. You didn't look okay, she said quietly, like that somehow made her the hero of this scene. Like following me out into the drizzle meant something more than 2 years of nothing. I just wanted to check on you. You want to check on me? I said, finally turning to face her. After you erased me from your life like I was a typo? That's not what I did. You ghosted me, Mallory. I left a letter. You left a document with bullet points. She flinched again. I almost felt bad. Almost. Her hair was damp now, her mascara slightly smudged under one eye. For a moment, she didn't look like the polished woman from Instagram. She looked like someone caught in the act of remembering everything she tried to forget. And I realized, maybe she wasn't here for me. Maybe she was here for her guilt. I couldn't face you, she said finally, her voice almost lost to the wind. You would have talked me out of it. That hit harder than I expected. You're damn right I would have, I said, my voice cracking at the edges. Because I believed in us. Because I thought you were just tired. Or confused. I didn't think you were building a whole other life with someone who drinks his coffee out of a mason jar. She laughed then. A real, tiny laugh. It made me sick. You still do that thing, she said, wiping under her eye. What thing? Make jokes when you're breaking. And just like that, I hated her again. Not in the dramatic, movie-ending way. It was quieter than that. Like hating someone for knowing you too well after they've stopped deserving to. I turned back to the lot, the wind pushing drizzle into my face. My hoodie was soaked through. Why'd you really come out here? I asked without looking at her. You wanted to make sure I'm not going to throw myself into traffic? Or just check if I still wear sad shoes? She didn't answer at first. I almost thought she'd finally walk away. But then, quietly, she said, I had a dream last month. You were standing at the end of a dock. You didn't look at me. You just walked into the lake and disappeared. When I woke up, I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what to say. For a few seconds, I just stood there, blinking away the rain, unsure if the wetness on my cheeks was just the weather or something else. Why do you care now? I asked. Because you mattered. You still matter. Just not in the way you want to. That was worse than a slap. Worse than the letter. Worse than every silence she gifted me over the last 748 days. I finally looked at her. Well, Mallory, I said softly, you don't get to decide how much I matter anymore. And then I walked. This time, she didn't follow. I could feel it in the air, the shift, the resignation. Maybe she finally understood that you can't circle back after carving someone out of your life with surgical precision. You don't get to mourn what you murdered slowly. I reached my car, put the microwave in the passenger seat, and sat behind the wheel with my hands trembling. In the mirror, I could still see her standing there in the rain. But she didn't move. She just watched me drive away. I thought that would be it. A final scene. Curtains down. Her watching me from under that leaking mall awning while I drove away with the saddest microwave in North America beside me. But this story refuses to end where I need it to. I learned it the hard way 3 days later when I got a letter in the mail with no return address. No envelope. Just a folded paper shoved inside a torn greeting card sleeve with cartoon raccoons on the front. It looked like it had been written in a rush, the pen barely keeping up with the thoughts. But the handwriting was familiar. Slanted. Sharp. Mallory's. And across the top, scrawled above the first sentence, were 5 words I wish I never read. You don't know the half. I stared at those words for a long time, sitting on my unmade bed, the letter heavy in my hand. The microwave still wasn't unpacked. I hadn't eaten anything except dry cereal since the mall. And now she was writing me cryptic notes like this was some sort of treasure hunt. Or a trap. The first line? Curtis was never supposed to be permanent. My stomach turned. What was that supposed to mean? A fling? A placeholder? The father of her child was temporary? She went on. Said she didn't mean to get pregnant, and that Curtis pushed for the baby. That after the child was born, things weren't what she thought they'd be. His charm, the laughs, the late-night energy, it all fizzled once real life set in. She talked about how he changed, how he started drinking more, how he stopped listening, how he once vanished for 2 days and came back with a black eye and no explanation. And then came the part that made me sit up. I've never told anyone this, but when I left you, I was already 3 months pregnant, and I wasn't sure it was his. My hands started shaking so hard the paper crackled. I had to set it down and walk away. I paced the apartment like a trapped animal. 3 months? 3? That would mean there's a real chance. No. That couldn't be. I went back to the letter. Curtis didn't ask questions when I told him. He wanted the idea of a child more than the truth. He said if we didn't know for sure, we'd just say it was his. And I was too ashamed to stop him. I wanted to bury it. I convinced myself it was his. And maybe it is. But I don't know. And now, I can't stop wondering. I dropped the letter. I sat on the floor and stared at the fridge. My mind was buzzing with half-formed thoughts, none of them helpful. I remembered the baby. His eyes. Those same deep blues I used to see in the mirror when I actually looked at myself. It wasn't just a meeting at the mall anymore. This wasn't just about her leaving me and replacing me with a cardigan-wearing startup guy. This was about a child. And maybe, just maybe, my child. I picked up the letter again. The rest of it was jumbled. Regrets. Guilt. Some line about how she sometimes wonders what would have happened if she'd told me sooner. A closing that said, I'm not asking for anything. I just thought you deserved to know. Deserve to know? I wanted to scream. I deserved a hell of a lot more than this torn-up confessional stuffed in a dollar store raccoon card. But still, I couldn't stop thinking about it. That baby. That stroller. That gummy smile. Those eyes. What if I'd walked right past my son? What if Mallory didn't just walk away from me? What if she took my child with her? I didn't sleep that night. Not a single minute. I sat on the edge of my bed in the same clothes I wore to the mall, rereading her letter until the words lost meaning. He might be yours. That line looped in my head like a song I didn't ask for. It wasn't just the betrayal anymore. It was something much deeper. I might have lost a child I never knew I had. And worse? He might have been sleeping under another man's roof for the last 2 years, calling him dad. By sunrise, I was pacing the hallway like a lunatic. I pulled out my old laptop, the one with food crumbs under the keys and stickers from when Mallory thought she wanted to start a blog, and opened a new tab, Paternity Test Without Mother's Consent. That search led me down a dark rabbit hole. Forums full of men like me, Ghost dads, maybe dads, ex-husbands buried under someone else's lie. Most of them said the same thing. Unless you have legal rights, don't expect cooperation. And don't expect the truth. But I wasn't looking for cooperation. I was looking for closure. I hadn't spoken to Mallory since the letter. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to cry. I wanted to ask her how long she planned to keep that information hidden. Was she going to wait until he turned 18? Or maybe just never tell me at all? But deep down, I knew why she sent the letter. It wasn't for me. It was to wipe the slate clean, to clear her conscience without facing the consequences. I opened my phone, scrolled through old messages until I found the number I had once memorized. Her number. I hadn't dialed it since the divorce. But now my thumb hovered over it. I didn't want to hear her voice. I didn't trust what mine would sound like. So I sent a single text. We need to talk. Face to face. Please don't bring him. I stared at the typing bubble that came and went. Came and went. Then nothing. No reply. I waited 5 minutes. 10. I tossed the phone across the couch and buried my face in my hands. It rang 20 minutes later. Her voice was quiet, flat, like she was trying not to wake someone else. I'll meet you, she said. Tomorrow. But only for 10 minutes. This doesn't change anything. But it already had. The next day, we met at a park bench just outside the neighborhood where we used to live, neutral territory. She wore sunglasses even though it was cloudy. She looked tired. Her hair wasn't done, and she had a stain on her sleeve. It was the first time in years she looked imperfect. Strangely, that made her feel real again. I got right to it. I want a test. She didn't answer at first. She just picked at a loose thread on her sleeve and said, I knew you'd say that. So? She exhaled. What do you want me to do, Elwood? Just take him to a lab and tell Curtis. What? Surprise, the kid might not be yours. Curtis doesn't matter. I do. That's not fair. None of this is fair. I spent 2 years grieving a woman who never even buried me properly. And now you're telling me I might have missed my own son's first steps, first words. Stop it. Why? Because it hurts? Good. She looked away. Her hand trembled slightly, and I could tell she wanted to cry. But again, she didn't. I always hated that about her. That ability to wall off everything. To blink once, smile tightly, and pretend the ground wasn't crumbling beneath her. I didn't want to destroy anyone's life, she said. You already did. Silence. Then, just when I thought the conversation was over, she pulled something from her coat pocket. A photo. A small, bent Polaroid of the boy, Cedar, sitting in a sandbox with a plastic dinosaur in one hand. He was looking up at someone, mid-laugh. His hair was a mess. His cheeks were full. And those eyes. Tell me they're not yours, she said, and for the first time, her voice cracked. I took the photo, stared at it for a long time, and felt something break inside me. Not the grief. Not the anger. Something worse. The terrifying hope that maybe, just maybe, I still had something left to fight for. Do the test, I said. And then I got up and walked away before I lost whatever was left of me. The wait nearly killed me. It took 12 days. 12 long, bone-cracking, nerve-twisting days to get the results. During that time, I couldn't focus on anything. Couldn't work, couldn't sleep, couldn't even sit still long enough to finish a sandwich. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the boy's face, his wide eyes, his round cheeks, his laugh I'd only heard once from a distance. I kept asking myself questions that no one could answer. Would he like dinosaurs because I did at his age? Did he sleep on his side like I do? Did he cry at loud noises? Did he even know who I was? When the envelope finally came, I just stared at it for a full hour. It was plain, white, and impossibly light. I don't know why I expected it to weigh more, maybe because it held the future in it, or at least the version of it I'd quietly built in my mind. The moment I opened it, I knew it would change something. I just didn't know which part of me would be left standing after. It was positive. 99.9%. He was mine. I didn't cry. I thought I would. I thought I'd break down or laugh or throw something. But I didn't. I just sat there on my kitchen floor, holding a truth I never asked for and wondering how long she'd known. How long she'd lived beside me, inside our home, pregnant with my child and keeping it to herself. I called her. She didn't pick up. I called again. Nothing. I drove to her place. Curtis opened the door. He didn't look surprised. That's what hit me first. He looked resigned, like he'd been expecting this moment to arrive like a train he couldn't stop. His eyes were duller than the last time I'd seen him, less smug, more worn out. His jaw was tight, his hair messy, like fatherhood hadn't been the romantic dream Instagram filters had promised. "She's not here," he said flatly. "Then you and I are going to talk," I replied. He didn't move, just leaned against the doorframe and crossed his arms. "I know." I blinked. "You know what?" "That he's yours," he said without even flinching. "I've always known." The silence after that was volcanic. Something inside me snapped, not violently, just permanently, like a door closing for good. I couldn't understand what he was saying. I needed him to repeat it, to explain it, to admit it wasn't real. But he didn't. He just kept talking. "She told me before he was born. Said it might not be mine. But I didn't care. I told her I'd raise him anyway. That if he looked like you, I'd deal with it. You were irrelevant to me." I stepped forward, my fist trembling. "Irrelevant? You mean me?" "The biological father. You think biology makes you a dad," he snapped. "Where were you when he had a fever at 3 a.m? Where were you when he couldn't sleep unless someone sang to him? You think you can just walk in now and rewrite what's already been written? You stole him. She gave him to me." Those words, they hit like ice in my lungs. I couldn't breathe, couldn't blink, couldn't stand still. He wasn't raising my child by accident. He'd taken him with full knowledge. And she let him. "You could have told me," I said, my voice breaking. "You both could have." "We didn't know you anything," he cut in coldly. "She left. You weren't part of the picture anymore." "But I should have been," I whispered. Curtis looked me in the eye and said something I'll never forget. "Then maybe you should have fought harder before she walked out the door." I turned and left. I don't remember walking back to my car. I don't remember driving. I just remember the realization that the two of them had built a life on top of a lie and sealed me out of it like I was the threat. But now, I had the truth. And the truth had weight. I wasn't just the ex-husband anymore. I was someone's father. And I had a decision to make. I thought knowing the truth would give me strength, like the DNA results would unlock some kind of righteous momentum inside me. I thought I'd print them, staple them to some legal form, march into court like a man with purpose. But the truth doesn't come with instructions. It comes with weight, with fear, with a hollow kind of ache that makes you question if you even deserve what you've just uncovered. I didn't file anything. Not yet. Instead, I sat on that piece of paper like it was radioactive. And every time I thought about making a move, my brain dragged me back to the same question. What if he doesn't want to know me? Mallory hadn't called me since the park. Curtis clearly wanted me erased. And the kid, the actual child in the middle of this mess, he didn't even know I existed. That thought haunted me more than anything else. My son was growing up thinking someone else was his dad, while I sat on the sidelines, chewing my own heart into pieces. And yeah, I know how pathetic that sounds. I hate it too. But one morning, 3 weeks after that park bench meeting, I made a decision. Maybe not the right one. Definitely not the strong one. But the only one I could live with. I wrote a letter. A real one. Handwritten. No raccoons. No typing. Just me, ink, and every ounce of nerve I had left. It wasn't dramatic. No threats. No legal jargon. Just honesty. I told her I wasn't coming to ruin anything. I just wanted to meet him one time. No expectations. No pressure. Just a conversation. A moment. A window. She replied 2 days later. One line. Saturday, 11 a.m. at Marlowe Park. Come alone. The minute I pulled into that lot, I felt like I was trespassing in my own dream. The sun was out, mocking me with its cheerfulness. Families dotted the grass, kids on swings, parents with coffee cups and forced smiles. I parked far from the playground and walked in slow, unsure steps, scanning faces. And then I saw them. Mallory sat under a tree, her knees pulled up to her chest. She looked smaller than I remembered. Next to her, in the grass, sat a boy with a red toy truck in one hand and a juice box in the other. Cedar. My son. He didn't look up when I approached. Mallory did. No wave. No smile. Just a shallow nod. I crouched beside them, not too close, heart pounding in places I didn't know had rhythm. Hi, I said softly. Cedar looked up. Big blue eyes. My eyes. Who's that? He asked. Mallory hesitated. That's an old friend. Friend of yours? He asked her. Then, looking at me directly for the first time, added, You don't look like a friend. You look like a stranger. That word hit me in the throat. Stranger. That's what I was. A stranger to my own blood. I forced a weak smile. Well, yeah, I guess I do. Do you have trucks? He asked, pointing to the one in his hand. Used to, I replied. Not as cool as that one. He inspected me. 3 seconds of absolute silence. Then he returned to his juice. Mallory didn't speak. Neither did I. We just sat there, three broken people arranged like a mistake no one wanted to claim. I watched him play for 20 minutes. Asked him 2 questions. Got 3 answers. At one point, he looked up and said, "Your shoelace is weird." And that was the most direct connection we had. Then Mallory stood up, dusted off her jeans, and said, "Okay, time to go." I didn't argue. Didn't beg. Just nodded and stood slowly. As she packed his things, I crouched beside him once more and whispered, "Maybe I'll see you again sometime, buddy." He didn't respond. But as they walked away, just before they turned the corner, he looked over his shoulder and yelled one word. "Bye, stranger." I stood there frozen. That word again. Stranger. It echoed in my chest like a closing door. I had met my son, and I was nothing more than a visitor in his story. A week passed after that morning in the park. I couldn't stop hearing that word, stranger. I heard it in my dreams, in the kettle whistle, in the spaces between thoughts. It wasn't meant to be cruel. He was just a kid calling things what they were. And the truth is, he wasn't wrong. I was a stranger. A ghost that drifted into his sunny world and left a shadow on the grass. But even ghosts remember the way sunlight feels. I didn't reach out again right away. I told myself not to push it. Let her breathe. Let him breathe. I convinced myself that the moment I had, those 20 minutes watching him push toy wheels through the dirt, had to be enough. But grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it just sits there in your chest, quiet and heavy and waiting. And then, for days later, my phone buzzed. Mallory. One line. Cedar keeps asking when the man with weird shoelaces is coming back. I read it over and over, thinking maybe I was misreading it. But I wasn't. That was my invitation. Or at least, an opening. So we tried again. Same park, different spot. I brought him a toy fire truck, red, with working sirens. He lit up when he saw it. Not for me, necessarily, but for the fire truck. And that was enough. He asked me what noise real fire trucks make. I did a stupid, over-the-top, WYOH impression, and he laughed so hard he dropped his juice box on the grass. The second meeting lasted an hour. The third? Almost 2. By the fourth, he started calling me fire truck guy. I took it. I held on to that nickname like it meant something sacred. Because in a way, it did. I was no longer a stranger. I was a thing, a part of his vocabulary, his memory, his Saturday. That was more than I had any right to expect. Curtis didn't like it. I saw it in his face one day when he came to pick Cedar up. We didn't speak. We just nodded. Civil, careful. Like 2 men holding opposite ends of a very fragile thread. I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. Maybe even fear. But I didn't come for revenge. I didn't want to destroy his role, I just wanted my own. And surprisingly, Mallory understood that. She began inviting me to more than just the park. Play centers. Story time. A science museum. Cedar liked rockets. He liked ketchup on everything. He hated loud toilets and loved bubble wrap. Every week, I learned something new about him, and every week, I feared it would all get taken away. But it didn't. It kept growing slowly, unevenly, like something planted too late in the season, but determined to bloom anyway. And one afternoon, while we were sitting on the floor of a bookstore, flipping through a picture book about sea turtles, he leaned against my arm and said softly, without even looking up, "You feel like a dad." I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. My throat closed. My heart dropped. I blinked too fast and hoped he didn't notice. But he did. "Are you crying?" he asked. No," I coughed. "I'm allergic to turtle books." He laughed, shook his head like I was ridiculous, and kept reading. That moment, that single sentence, stitched something inside